You take this day to day and challenge all of us to think really bigger about our life. Let me just quote you. You wrote, "A big void needs to be filled in retirement, but it should not be filled just with things to keep you busy." Like, this is not just a march to the grave. This is a whole different piece of your life, and it shouldn't just be about rearranging the salt and pepper shaker every day, or, figuring out that the dog needs to go for a walk. Like, you challenge us to think a lot bigger about this period. And I'm super happy she's here at the card table with us. Veronica McCain joins us. How are you?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Well, I'm happy now that you're here, because we're about to talk, if this goes according to plan, we're about to talk about all the things that you and I think people should talk about during retirement, but often kind of gloss over because they're, just, and don't get me wrong, we're going to talk about the money too, but it's about more than money. But as a way to get there, Veronica, I've always believed that if you want advice, it's helpful to get it from somebody who's kind of walked that path, right? When I was a financial planner, I haven't been one in a long time, but when I was, the fact that I worked with 200 families and I'd seen retirement over and over and over again should give people a little bit of comfort that, yes, you want to do this once. I've done it a bajillion times, but I had not at that point ever retired. You have actually retired. Tell me about that. Do you remember the countdown to your retirement?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when I was working, you do the usual countdown on your calendar, kind of Xing out the days until it actually hits. And then when that day comes, I think you get I know I did at least, got an overwhelming emotions. Because then I realized, I'm leaving my work, and my work was not just work for me. I actually had, work family, and, closing that door to my office day.
What did you do, by the way?
I work for the federal government, so I was a associate director over several various departments within an agency, a very small agency, about 300 people. But because you're a small agency, you kind of have to sometimes do a lot. So I oversaw a lot of different departments. Yeah.
So you have this flood of emotions. Were the emotions about loss? Were they about excitement? I don't know. Is it all the above? Is it purpose? Well, I mean, what?
Yeah, I kind of had an idea sort of what I wanted to do. So I kind of knew what path I was going to take once I retired. I knew I was going to go into some type of coaching field. Didn't know exactly what way I was going to go with it. At first, I thought maybe more in the executive coaching area. But then as I thought about that more, it kind of gave me flashbacks for work. So then I decided to get into more of the retirement, because people were asking me so many questions about, what do you do? And once you retire, how do you fill your days and that kind of thing? So, as I was approaching, looking into the coaching area, I did look at retirement coaching, and I said, this would be an interesting field to pursue, because I like to motivate people and have people get excited about their goals and what they want to do in life. And I like the kind of the financial side as well. So, that's why I decided to kind of lean more toward the retirement coaching. But getting back to when that final day came.
Yeah.
I think it was when I had the actual retirement, sometimes at work they give you a retirement party, and you see everybody and they're like, say something. And then when I got up to say something, all of a sudden I started feeling like I was going to cry because I was looking out at everybody, and I was like, wow, this is really the end. Even though I had something, like I said, to look forward to going through, I didn't expect that emotion to come over me like that, but it did. And I think a lot of people experience that when the final day comes of their retirement.
There is like I don't know, I mean, this is morbid, but there is like a death. I mean, it is your last cake, right?
Right.
You've been to see other people's cake, but all of a sudden you realize this is your last slice.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's kind of, that, you're going to try to keep in contact with the people that you work with, and try to have, still, have some type of relationship. But it does change. It really does, because you just, everything usually that you talk about with people at work is work related stuff. And over time, when you retire, that kind of goes by the wayside with you.
Do you feel like we're too cavalier about that process, about the fact that we're going to have these emotions? We just think, I'll deal with it when I get there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just so caught up in, I'm going to be retired. I can do whatever I want. It's so exciting or whatever. So yeah, I think you don't really feel like that you're going to have those type of emotions. I think you just feel like you're going to go to this next chapter in your life and it's going to be, oh, this burst of excitement. And it is. I'm not saying that you're not going to have it, but I do think there's also a period of where you kind of adjust to, what you've left behind in your job and your identity and all that went with that. And then, going forward, pursuing what you have to look forward to in retirement. So it's kind of a mixed bag those first couple of years.
You tell your own story, but you also tell stories of a few other people in the workbook. One is a woman named Susan. Susan seems a little lost, Veronica. Do you remember Susan's story? Can you tell our stackers about Susan?
Yeah, I think if you're correct, that Susan is the one who kind of the days and the walls were kind of closing in on her.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, she was the one where person in the book that I talk about, and this is the people that I talk about in the book are actual people that I coach. I use different names and scenarios.
Names changed to protect the guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, she was kind of the person, and this is a lot. Like when you're working, you're kind of looking forward to those days that you have off where you can kind of do some things that you want to do. But then when you retire and it's every day, it gets a little daunting if you really don't have an idea of what you're going to be doing to fill your days. Your day-to-day life, I think, is the hardest thing that most people struggle with when they retire. They have some huge aspirations, maybe of traveling or doing that, but once they're sitting in their house on a day-to-day basis, and the walls are house is kind of quiet and not a lot going on. You don't have that routine of going to work anymore. It's kind of like, what do I do on a day-to-day kind of thing, and that's kind of challenging.
But what, Veronica, separates your workbook from a lot of the retirement discussions I've seen is that you take this day to day and challenge all of us to think really bigger about our life. Like I got this feeling even in the beginning pages as you're telling this story that, well, you say it. Let me just quote you. You wrote, a big void needs to be filled in retirement, but it should not be filled just with things to keep you busy. Like this is not just a march to the grave. This is a whole different piece of your life. And it shouldn't just be about rearranging the salt and pepper shaker every day or, figuring out that the dog needs to go for a walk. Like you challenge us to think a lot bigger about this period.
Exactly. I think that, it is an exciting time for you to think bigger about your life because it's probably the first time in your life that you're actually able to do what you want to do on your own schedule and hopefully have the finances to do that. So I think it's more than just trying to fill your days with just stuff to do. And I think a lot of times when you first retire, if you don't really have an idea of what path you're going to go down once you retire, that's what you start doing. You start trying to just, okay, let me do this, and do that. And you're still not feeling fulfilled. So I'm hoping in the workbook, I give you exercises to help you, because people struggle with like, what does this mean? Purpose, meaning, fulfillment, or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are, I think, sometimes big words that we use. But I hopefully going through some of the exercises in the book, you will be able to figure that out by going through the exercises and trying to say, okay, well, what do I really want to look for as far as my next chapter in my life of what I want to pursue and what I want to do, more than just these little small things that are keeping you busy.
It's funny. I get coaching from a group called Strategic Coach. Longtime stackers have heard me talk about them before, but we have a workbook similar to yours with these big questions about leadership and about coaching. But you do the same thing here with retirement. And this is not, guys, this is not a long workbook. But if you're doing this right, it may take you months to fill this stuff out. Because I could see myself, Veronica, peeling off maybe 2 pages. And really, because the thought that goes into each page of this is really the important part. Well, let me give everybody some of the tips from the book that you have early on, because you have workbook pieces and then you have some tips. Here's some tips early on for when you first get to retirement to kind of send you on this path while you're filling out the workbook. Schedule activities you enjoyed doing when you took time off from work. Journal and reflect on your expectations of yourself as a retired person. I love that word expectations, by the way. Read books and articles, listen to podcasts and a variety of topics to discover what most interests you now, and volunteer for different organizations to discover how you most enjoy helping people and helping out. It feels to me, Veronica, like you're challenging people also to don't be afraid to explore. Like go try stuff expecting that it might not be a fit.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Joe. I want people to not be kind of trapped into thinking they have to have everything planned out, to just go out and just do things that they find intriguing or that interest them. And then from there, they can determine what they want to continue to pursue or what they don't want to continue to pursue. But don't limit yourself on what you think you should be doing or how you should be doing it. This is a time for you to be adventurous and explore, different avenues and things that interest you. And a lot of times that's kind of a hard thing to do for people because they've lived this kind of structured life up to this point with work and all that, and to try to say, "Oh, just go out here and do whatever," and try to figure it out. It can be a little intimidating, like, "Oh, whatever, what?"
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm hoping that the exercise in the book gives you kind of cues to, okay, these are some things: volunteering, doing some other things that you thought about maybe when you were younger and didn't pursue. Kind of go back to those times of those thoughts and try to figure out if there's things that you want to pursue now. So yeah.
It's funny because I really went through this crisis where I felt like not just as a lot of stuff not interest me, but I'm like, okay, I want to get involved in my community. I want to get involved in an organization, but which ones? I don't, this is going to sound very horrible, Veronica, but I just didn't care about any of them. And then I realized that it wasn't about that. I needed to just go get involved. And when I found out, and ultimately at first it was the Arthritis Foundation I got involved with, I found out about juvenile arthritis. I found out about all of these things happening in the arthritis community. I got involved in walking trails around town, and I realized how walking trails not only are healthy living, but beautify a city, but they're also very inexpensive ways for cities to raise property values. Like, I learned it by exploring exactly what you're saying to do in the book.
Exactly. That sounds so great, Joe, because that's exactly what I'm hoping people will do once they start retiring, just like you said you did. You just started going out and doing things. And as you started doing those things, you learned so much and it got your interest even more into whatever activities you were pursuing. And that's what you have to do. You really have to just, I think the one thing that people have to realize when they retire, you have to be intentional. You have to go out and do it. It's not going to come to you. And a lot of times I think, when I'm working, coaching with clients, they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you got to go out and try. You can't, it's not going to come to you. You've got to go out there and pursue it. And once you do, and when, you will see, oh, okay, this does interest me or this doesn't interest me, but you've got to go out there and do it. So.
Can we talk about that, what you just said about you kind of kicking people in the butt and kicking them out the door to go? Like my mom used to say, don't come back inside until that light turns on. We back when kids went outside, maybe I'm dating myself there, but, but you end almost every chapter of this workbook with who are going to be your accountability partners. It seems to me like accountability partners are a big piece of this. Tell me about how do you find these people, Veronica, maybe just before you retire?
Yeah, and sometimes who they can be. They can be trusted friends and people that or people that I think sometimes there are people that are asking you questions about yourself and are intrigued about you as an individual. But you do have to find, I think, sometimes an accountability person, because in retirement, there's nothing pushing you to do anything. And if you don't sometimes have somebody that you can hold accountable, and if you can't, find someone within your network, I would advise you to look for a coach, because that's what they can be as well. Look for a retirement coach or a life coach or someone in that field, because they can be your accountability partner. But if you're finding that you're struggling trying to get stuff done and you're not really getting out there and you're bored and you're restless and you want to get some pickup in your life, you definitely need to probably look into getting somebody to be accountable and help you with that, because I know I even have coaches that I work with and I'm a coach to help me. So it's not it's just something that just like I said, it helps you keep you accountable to someone, keep you motivated to do things.
I think that kind of like you, Veronica, I just get this feeling that with my coach, if I say it out loud to Mary Lou, it means I got to go do it. Then if somebody tells you, or if you tell your coach, then you have to go do it. I want to stick with this theme of friends and family a little bit because those might be some of the people you're bouncing stuff off of. But you also say if you're having trouble finding your sense of purpose, that friends and family might be a good outlet. What do you ask them questions about you and what you want to do, like an outside? Tell me about that.
Yeah, and that's what I found for me. That's why I said I went, I knew I wanted to go into coaching. I wasn't really sure which way I wanted to go. And the reason why I decided to be a retirement coach is because friends and stuff were saying, you're good at, coaching and talking about this retirement stuff or whatever. And I thought like, you should do something, with that. And that's why I pursued becoming a retirement coach. But I think oftentimes friends and family see things within you that you don't even see yourself. They recognize talents and things that you have that you're like, oh, okay, you're right. I do enjoy that. You kind of brush it off and maybe not pay attention to where they might be. And I think when you're listening to your friends and family, you have a tendency because you trust them to, kind of listen to their guidance a little bit, maybe more than somebody else that doesn't really know you. So I say always lean into your friends and families to help you if you're trying to figure out maybe, some things you might want to do. They might say, well, you're good at organizing or you're good at accounting or you're good at this or whatever. And they might give you some cues to help you figure out what that next chapter is going to be in your life in retirement. So definitely look for them for that.
I like the fact that you go through a lot of this first about purpose and value and meaning before you get to the money in chapter 2, because your chapter 2 then really is structured around, okay, now that you know that, we can focus on spending money where it's important and saving money where it's not. And hopefully I have an idea there. You start off with some good tips. You talk about traveling. A lot of people in retirement want to travel. You say to be a conscientious traveler. What does that mean?
Travel, have an idea. I know, and this maybe came from my own experience. When everybody always says when they retire, they want to travel. And then all of a sudden they just start going places and not really thinking of where they really want to go and why they want to go there. I kind of had to regroup because when I first retired, I think everybody does that. You go through that. I just want to get out and go, 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 go. Right. And you're just going everywhere. But you're spending money going everywhere. So you want to kind of maybe reel that back in. It's okay to have that little brief period of doing that, but you want to reel that back in and really think about, where is it? Where do I really want to go? Why do I want to go there? What do I want to experience once I get there? Make sure you're spending your travel dollars on things that are value to you and make yourself more conscious of the type of travel you're doing. I know I did a lot of girlfriend getaway travels, spa and all that. And that's great, but I really want to explore the world. That's what I really want. I want bigger trips. And so, you need to just be conscious of what your goal is, as far as you're traveling and what you want to see, and make sure you're putting your money into that type of travel versus just, doing things with
just
your
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I really like that you shine a light on is now that you're retired, you can really lean into off season. And one thing that's not in your workbook that I love about off season that Cheryl and I have found, because she has a somewhat flexible job and I could travel whenever. Off season, you get more of the local experience because the places aren't full of a bunch of tourists. People are more likely to be able to linger and talk to you. Like off season is great, but to your point, you save a bunch of money there too.
Exactly. And I travel now. That's all I do is try to travel off season. Because just like you say, as far as you want to make sure with your dollars that you're spending them in a conscientious way as far as when you're traveling too. And going off season, I feel like as a retiree is the best time for you to travel because you really get a feel for everything without the crowds. And like you said, the pricing is better. You're able to enjoy it in a different way than if you go during when it's crowded and more people are. Yeah. Places that you want to go. So yeah.
No, a much better experience too. You get a better room, you get upgrade rooms sometimes. And yes. What are some other ways that new retirees and people that are stackers that maybe are getting close to retirement can think about areas where they might be able to save money besides on discount or off-season travel?
I would just look in your budget overall of what you have developed as far as I think everybody should be tracking their costs before they retire and coming up with a overall budget of what they think their retirement is going to be. But some of the things you can look at is cars. I know, insurance and things of that nature. Look at that to see if there's ways you can save on that once you retire. I know there's also lots of discounts and stuff, like we were talking about off seasons, but also if you kind of pursue looking, like you want to go to parks or whatever your interest might be, looking for ways you can get discounts on things of that nature, and just be aware of any, kind of ways you can save money with traveling. It's just a lot of different ways out there too for other things as well.
Yeah. Two big ones I really like that you had. If you've got two vehicles, you might be able to go to one. Think about what you think about transportation. Evaluate your life insurance. Do you need it anymore? Are you financially solvent enough where maybe you could get rid of that? And then a medical one, which I really liked, was, hey, this medical thing's going to get expensive. Stay healthy, which also gets you out of the house. I feel like, Veronica, again, you're kicking people's butt out of the house.
I definitely, with the medical and the exercising, and now that you've got all this time, you definitely can get a nice physical routine into your everyday life. Just simple walking. I know I take morning walks every morning, not just for exercise, but for meditation purposes for me as well. But yeah, we all know the medical cost is a big expense when you retire, and we also know that you get more, sedentary in your way. You're not as active as you were when you were working. So I do recommend that you do have a physical fitness routine for yourself when you retire to keep yourself healthy so you can reduce those medical costs. Because a lot of the medical costs is stuff you can prevent, and things that you could be doing to prevent, but you got to start early, early on in your retirement and start doing things to keep yourself healthy. We all know, when we go to the doctors at a certain age, we're all getting those, oh, you're close, borderline this, borderline that. And so it's time for you to really, at that point, when you're at that point, you can do things within your health to keep yourself more healthy. So yeah, definitely.
I look at a hamburger now and my cholesterol goes up. I just look at it. I don't know how that medically happens, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. We all know that feeling.
With people that own their house, you have a section of your workbook to go through renovations on your house and thinking about your housing situation. This is the number one area in our budget, our house. What are some of those key considerations about our housing we should be thinking about?
Yeah, a lot of people, especially if they want to stay in their houses, should look at as far as their, as I call, aging in place in their houses, and look how well their house is going to be able to support them once they start aging. And look at, I have a checklist in there of things that you should look at as far as your stairs and your appliances and just repairs and stuff that you might need to do to your house as you start getting older. Those kind of costs, if you're, not prepared for them, can really wreak havoc on your retirement budget. So if you know that this is where you want to stay, if your house is where you want to stay, then you definitely need to look at it like even the showers, grab bars and steps.
Oh, yeah.
Steps, if that's going to work as you get older. I know, with my husband, he had a while back had an accident. He couldn't go up the steps, and we had to kind of do for downstairs. But it made him start thinking, as we age, how if we're not able to go up the steps, how are we going to do it? Because we don't have a bedroom on our main level. So those are the things that you need to really think about if you're going to decide to stay in your house. So what you need to do and kind of come up with a plan. So it doesn't all hit you at once, because sometimes it does, unfortunately, one accident.
And it'll be unexpected, like your husband's too. I mean, there's no, Tuesday, everything's fine. Wednesday, the game's changed.
Exactly. And you need to kind of be thinking about that, especially, like I said, if you plan on staying in your house, what your game plan is, and start trying to figure out how you can get your house accessible so that as you age, it'll still suit you. Yes.
You talk about moving, and about a lot of people, of course, think about moving when they retire. And you also talk about friendships. And I'm glad that you coupled the two of those together, because one thing I've always thought, and now I know we're here to interview you, Veronica, but I'm going to pontificate for just a second. No because I feel like people think of moving way too, we talked about being too cavalier with this whole thing. This especially to me is an area where people are too cavalier. I'm just going to move closer to my kids. And what you find is that your kids are really busy. They got a bunch of stuff going on. you become a full-time babysitter, but you don't end up interacting with them in the way that they want. And all of these close friendships that you developed over the last 30, 40 years. I'm a guy who lived for a decade in Texarkana. I moved away to Detroit for 2 years. And Veronica, we came back, and not because I have family here, in quotes, because all my friends are here. And I see some of my friends, as my friends are getting older, I find them, getting vacation houses that are far away, and we never get to see them anymore. And I feel like this loneliness, this isolation that we put ourselves into because we think it's great, I feel like we're way too cavalier about that. But anyway, I will shut up. I'm going to get off my step stool. What do you think?
You said it all, Joe. That is exactly what people do. They're very cavalier. They have this idea of, I'm going to live here and it's going to be this great, but they have no social connections there.
Yes.
Or I'm going to go near the grandkids, and the grandkids are getting older. The grandkids are going to grow up. They're not going to forever be little kids. They're going to grow up and have their own things, or even if they're already older, they have their own activities and stuff to do. So that's why in the workbook I give a checklist. Just even ask them. Sometimes when you say I want to move, do they want you there? Or is it something that they see as, oh yeah, we want you close by? And I say also, don't let your only connections be your kids, your grandkids, or your kids. You need to have other social connections outside of them, because a lot of people say I'm moving closer for the children, and that might not work out. So it's one of those things that I think everybody has this idea of how it's going to be.
Yeah, this grandiose kind of idea.
This grandiose.
Not true.
So not true. And that's why hopefully when you go through the workbook and you look through the checklist, and if you do, the exercises that are focused on that, you'll have a clear perspective of whether that's a great move for you or not, whether it's going to work for you as you retire. Because I think it's harder once you get there to try to move back,
agreed.
Yeah.
You talked about how as a retiree now, you're not forced to get up and go to work. You don't have to now lead the charge like you did in your career, Veronica, with your department, with your agency. Time management then becomes really important then for retirees if you're going to get what value you want out of life. So you talk about morning routine, daytime routine, ideal week. Again, accountability partners, but I wanted to end by talking about this time management system for retirees. You call it POSEC, POSEC. Can you walk us through that?
Well, I think that one of the things that I think people struggle with the most, and I kind of alluded to that before, is you had a routine when you were going to work. And once you retire, that routine is no more. And I find a lot of times with new retirees, especially, that's where they feel the most lost. Is there's no structure to the day anymore. They're kind of all over the place and don't know how they can spend, time sometimes just milling around, not doing anything or whatever. So I want you to. Sometimes when I tell people, structure, they kind of, like, that's why I'm not working anymore. I don't want to, like this.
Yeah, well, easy.
Right. Here you are trying to put me back at work with this structure. Morning routine, afternoon routine, daytime evening routine. This is the whole purpose of retirement, I thought, for me to just kind of mill around and not do anything. But we find that when people do that, they get very bored. So I just ask that you just kind of think of your days in more, how am I going to start my mornings? How am I going to get up in the morning, get started and get going through the day? I think once you get that start up in the morning of what you're going to do, it kind of guides you through the rest of the day. But you do need to think about how am I going to just get my day started, when you don't have an alarm clock to get you going every morning. So, yes.
The workbook is My Retirement My Way. It's a workbook for the newly retired. It's funny, the way that you go through goal setting like a 30-year-old would just reminds me the purpose is important no matter where you're at in life. And the book's available everywhere, correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Veronica, for helping our stackers get more successful with their retirement. It's funny. We talked to a guy, Wes Moss in Atlanta, about his book, What the Happiest Retirees Know.
Yes, I've
And
read his book.
well, it's so funny how it lines up it lines up so well. Like if you read that and do your workbook, you're going
Right.
to implement this and you're more likely to be one of those happy retirees. So thanks for this work.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.